Hey guys, it's me, Krista. As you probably know, I am a first-time DM or Dungeon Master for the game Dungeons & Dragons, and my players are a mixed group of adults and kids. I've got 3 adults in their 40s, and then 3 boys, ages 8, 9, and 10. They've all had their birthdays recently, so I had to think. So I wanted to share some of my thoughts and experiences on DMing for kids. Keep in mind, of course, this is my first and only experience doing so, but I think that I've had some various insights and thoughts on it which may be interesting to some of you guys and may be helpful as well. So to start out with, I do have notes that I'm going to be reading from. This is to keep me from rambling, so forgive me as I look to my paper from time to time to make sure that I'm staying on subject. So, what I would say are the main differences between a kid-based game and an adult-based game are, firstly, the pro, which is the creativity of the kids. Kids, of course, are used to playing and using their imaginations. Even in this generation, I know some people feel that today's kids don't use their imagination nearly as much. And perhaps they don't, but they still do sometimes. And they still are used to making up characters, being that person, and so on. So they tend to really want to be in character. They get into character very easily, compared to a lot of adults who may be kind of self-conscious or uncomfortable with that. And for the main con, I would say would be the attention span of the children. Now, this may be more of a problem of today's generation, but I'm sure that it's always been the case that kids do not have such good attention spans for games that would move slowly, that may involve a lot of dice rolling or debating over the rules, or in particular with a kids game, they seem to expect that the attention will be focused on them every step of the way. So having to wait for other people to take their dice, roll, do their actions, and have something happen to the other players while they're just sitting there is challenging for them. So because of that, there have been some adaptations that we've made to our style of gameplay so that we don't have kids getting up from the table when it's not their turn and, wandering around the house finding something else to do, worse yet, playing a video game instead, because that pretty much is an indication that your game's not really holding their interest, and we have had issues with that, especially initially. So I've got some ways to kind of offset that, if you will, and I'm going to talk about those things in a little bit. So what I've got here are basically 5 points that I wanted to mention about DMing for kids and how that may be different, what the strengths and weaknesses are of such a group dynamic, and what you can do to make sure that it's an awesome experience for all of your players and a great time for your kids. So my first point again deals with creativity. I feel that the kids are tremendously creative in Dungeons & Dragons, and they really do the unexpected. It seems to me, from my experience in playing adult-only groups, adults generally do what you might expect them to do, particularly in combat situations and even in diplomacy type situations. You pretty much know what the character is going to do. For kids, though, they really take you off guard by being so completely in character that the things that they choose to do sometimes don't even contribute to the action of the game, which initially was quite bewildering to me. There'll be a battle and one guy decides he's gonna go and loot the kitchen or something, and it's like, you're gonna go eat? You're gonna make a sandwich? This is life or death. But they're like, well, this is what my character would do. And I think that they're more inclined toward having a wacky character and a character who does things unconventionally rather than strategically, we are going to pass through this encounter, I'm going to do what my character can best do. So definitely the opposite of metagaming. They are so much in the character that they're not necessarily thinking strategically all the time, especially the younger kids. And that can really lead to a lot of very, very fun encounters, as long as you're aware that this could happen and you're not super concerned about them sticking to the adventure as if it was an itinerary that they had to hit each bullet point. So one thing that happened in our campaign, which is my favorite example, is that one of our kids, his half-orc character, got married to a half-orc character who was the daughter of one of the arch enemies of our tale, pretty much the arch enemy of Redwilla the Witch, around whom our campaign centers. So I'm going to show her real quick and talk about her, because I think that it's just so super. So I'm going to come over here, and here she is in the front. This is her figure that I painted, and her name is Lorma. Now Lorma, as you can see, she is a half-orc and she is a ranger. She is very much wilderness oriented in the swamp world that we are playing in. She loves to go out and look for different fantastical creatures. She is fascinated by magical beasts and things, especially sort of reptilian sorts. She loves basilisks and dragons and so on. But her family is a very evil clan, and this is her mother, who is Redwilla's arch rival, Hezra Blacktooth. And then here are her 3 half-orc sons, and each of them is equally evil. They're basically her henchmen who do all of her bidding, and she's a plotter and a schemer, trying to get power and also trying to get back at her childhood rival, Redwilla the Witch. So Lorma never really fit in with her family, and it was kind of an orcish Cinderella type tale. And so when our adventurers came along, it just so happened that Meh, the half-orc character in our campaign, was interested in marrying her, and so she became liberated from her family, whom they promptly slayed, and she has been adventuring with us ever since. They've also adopted a troll baby, whose mother was then killed when she was attempting to eat our party. So that has been really interesting. I do not know exactly how that is going to transpire just yet, because the troll baby, as you would expect, is not necessarily good alignment. So right now it's essentially like a toddler, only says a couple of words, and it's going to be really fun to see how this transpires. So that's one example of creativity and spontaneity. Things that happen in your game and you're like, wow, did that really just happen? That is amazing. And I don't think you necessarily see that so much in an adult game, just because kids are way more into doing things that are sort of wacky or offbeat, or they're not as centered on solving the adventure, like, as it were. So let's see. Because of their creativity and their interest in kind of spontaneously doing things that you may find rather random, I find that it is helpful to always keep the initiative order going, so that I do it on little cards. Everybody rolls their initiative, and I keep them in order in a little stack of cards, and every time it's somebody's turn, I tell them it's their turn, and then they do what they're gonna do, their action for that round. Now, of course, you're gonna do something like that in battle situations, but I do it all the time. And the reason I do it all the time is that in this campaign, and perhaps any campaign involving kids, they're not all wanting to do the same thing, like following in the party order and completing the adventure sequentially. No, they might just kind of, do odd things, interact in different ways other than you expect. And you want to allow them that creativity while making sure that everyone's going to get their turn. Because if one person is really being creative and off the wall, you want to make sure that, the other characters aren't getting forgotten in those instances. So I find that helps really to maintain the order of the game, that even if people are doing kind of wacky improv type of things, that there's going to be some semblance of order, everyone's going to have their turn, and so on. And I feel that with kids, because of the creativity factor, they tend to be maybe less plotline oriented, and that is a real difference. I think they're not necessarily trying to be strategic, but they want to be in character and they want to do what their character would do. So that's a difference, and I find it to be a really intriguing one. Now, for kids, like I mentioned in the very beginning, waiting for their turn tends to be the biggest challenge. They don't like to sit and wait for everybody else to go. They feel if it doesn't involve them, then it's not of interest. And that is when you may find them wandering away from the table, picking up a video game, playing with their toys, or creating a disruption. So in those instances, what I have found to be helpful is to make encounters personal for them. If not personal for each of them physically, then they must involve a character that they care about. And those characters in our campaign tend to be special NPCs that are kind of bonded to each person, so that each person has kind of either, if not their actual family, then they have certain friends or allies that they care about. And that way, if for whatever reason an encounter cannot directly threaten the character, it could threaten the one that they care most about, and that tends to be an even stronger motivating factor than their own encounter that could be dangerous to them. So if not for them, make it relate to their friends, because then they will really care about what's going on, and they won't want to miss a minute because something bad could happen to one that they care about. So I'm gonna have to break this here, because as usual when things get too long, I fear that they will not upload, so this will be part 1 of DMing a family-based campaign involving kids, and I will pick it up in a moment with part 2. Or will I? Hold on. There we go.